Hello and welcome to another Wheels Boy quick review. In today's video, we continue our quest to try to drive a car from every Chinese brand that we can by getting behind the wheel of this, the Changan CS55 Plus. Let's get started. Now, this is technically the first car that we've driven from the Changan brand itself, but this is not the first car from the Changan Automotive Group. That would be the Uni-T and Uni-K that we drove earlier on the channel. Looking at the front end, you can see there is a distinct family resemblance among these three models, specifically here in the headlight treatment as well as the grille area here. I would describe this one as a slightly more conservative version of the super futuristic look of the Uni-T and the Uni-K. One small detail that I like a lot on the CS55 Plus and other models from Changan is these little touches of color, like here on the front end. If we walk along to the side of the car, you can get a look at the profile, which I would describe as being much closer to that of the Uni-K than the Uni-T. The Uni-T having that incredibly raked rear roofline, kind of a coupe SUV look, if you will. Here on the side, we also have more touches of this nice matte red stuff here in front of the door, as well as down here on the rocker panel. I really do think it's nice, really breaks up the design quite a bit. We come around to the rear end. There is a nice rear taillight treatment. I would say not quite the same as that on the Uni models. This is a separating factor. But up top, we do have a very similar kind of spoiler and third brake light. Very sporty looking, very nice. And then down here, well, I'll come over here and show you. This is not an exhaust outlet, even though it's supposed to look like one, but it is a nice kind of chrome element. Let's pop open the trunk, shall we? A decent amount of space, as I recall, about 450 liters. This is helped, no doubt, by the fact that this does not have a really extreme raked roofline. If we take a seat inside, we can get a look at the interior, and what an interesting interior it is. The first thing that struck me when I sat in here was how much it reminds me of that of the Uni-K. Not necessarily in the exact details, but in the overall shape, including the LCD instrument cluster here, screen here, and then the layer of buttons underneath the screen. One big difference between this and the Uni-K is that these are real physical buttons, whereas the Uni-K has a touch capacitive layer here. I prefer this. Speaking of physical buttons, there are a couple of interesting ones down here. First is a button for your 360-degree camera and another for your traffic recording. This is something we saw in the Uni-T. Basically, it allows you to record, I believe, 15 or 30 seconds of footage of whatever's happening in front of the car when you're driving. But what interests me is the shape of these buttons. Instead of being a regular physical button that you press, they're actually kind of these wings that stick out to either side of the knob here that controls your driving modes. What that means is I can very easily take my hand, slide it back, and press down on these buttons very easily without having to take my eyes off of the road. A cool design, in my opinion. The other interesting thing about the interior here, of course, is this steering wheel. Now, this is pretty much the same steering wheel as you would find in the Uni-K that we drove before on the channel, and the reason it's shaped like this, as I understand it, is so that it does not block the rather low-placed instrument cluster here in front of the driver. I'm not sure how it's going to be in actual use. We'll just have to wait and find out when we drive the car. Here in the back seat, I would say, well, this is a compact vehicle, so you don't expect tons of head or leg room, but I would say that what you get is very, very nice. Here in front of me, especially if you're sitting behind somebody like me that likes to sit close to the steering wheel, there is absolutely tons of leg room. Headroom as well, quite good. This is definitely better, for example, than the Uni T because of the lack of that very raked rear roofline. Here in the center, we have two conveniently placed USB charging ports. And then, of course, you see that the red coloring, stitching, and red accents that you saw on the front, in the front seats, as well as the outside of the car, continue here in the back seat. Behind the wheel of the CS55 Plus, and let's start, of course, by talking a little bit about the numbers. Under the hood is a 1.5-liter turbocharged four-cylinder, making 138 kilowatts and 300 newton meters of torque. For my American friends, that is 188 horsepower and around 220 pound-feet. There is no official 0 to 100 kilometer per hour time for this car, but that's fine. It's not particularly fast, and it's not supposed to be. I would say the power levels, backed up by the 7-speed DCT, are adequate for daily use, but definitely not quick. I'd put it somewhere in mid-pack in this category in terms of acceleration. In the handling department, we have a McPherson strut suspension up front and a multi-link in the rear, which I did not expect for a car at this price point. You may be thinking, that sounds pretty familiar to what we had in the Uni T that we drove before. I am told by my friends at Changan that this is not the same platform as the Uni T. Even though they are the exact same length, they have the same engine, and as far as I can tell, they drive very similarly. Perhaps the Uni T is a little bit more sporty in its handling, but not by much. This car, again, rides quite well, handles fine, but the thing that I find most interesting, of course, is how you interact with the car, the steering wheel. I expressed some concern about the shape of it. I'm definitely not used to this kind of steering wheel, and I will say that in actual use, it's fine. It does feel a little bit like a go-kart or a video game when you're using it, but actually driving it on the road is not that big of a deal. It's not as bad, for example, as trying to get used to like a yoke steering wheel in a Model S Plaid. Somewhat surprising for a car at this price point, this also has what is, in theory, a level 3 autonomous driving system, or semi-autonomous system, I should say. This is the same one that is available in the Uni T. We are not going to be using it in this video for two reasons. First of all, it is still technically illegal to operate a car with an L3 system in China because you are supposed to have your hands on the steering wheel at all times. The other reason is we simply don't have time to use it. But if you're interested in learning how that system works, be sure to go check out our review of the Uni T where we talk in detail about how it operates. Congratulations for making it to the end of the video. In exchange for your hard work, I'm going to tell you the price of this car. The starting price is about $16,900 US here in the Chinese market, and a top-of-the-line model will cost you $18,500. Now, if you see somebody in the comments asking, how much does it cost? You can help us to answer them. Thank you so much for watching today's video. As always, check us out on Instagram and Facebook, links in the description below. And of course, like, subscribe, and hit the bell.